Fighting games have always been one of the most brilliant genres at celebrating aesthetics, with gameplay so focused on either singular strikes to open the path to outmaneuvering your opponent, or a random assortment of limbs flailing out depending on skill level. So much love and care goes into making that flurry of body parts as appealing as possible. Or some cool finishers if you're Mortal Kombat, I guess.
Is that your best?
And while there's certainly a litany of titles that manage to capture unique art styles with incredible casts that practically guarantees something is gonna appeal to someone, the one that always draws me back in, time and time again, is Darkstalkers.
Right. Yes.
The Darkstalkers franchise is a lot more than a battle simulator asking, well, who could win in a fight between the Wolfman and the creature from the Black Lagoon? It is a massive exaltation of horror movie classics and folklore alike, taking the creatures who go bump in the night and making them the coolest and strongest versions of themselves possible. Anakaris isn't just a mummy. His wrappings warp and distort to manipulate his mass and summon Egyptian iconography like pyramids and cobras. And he's glad to inflict all of the curses and traps that Pharaoh's tombs are supposed to contain on his foes. Rikuo isn't just an oddly attractive fishman. He takes from all of the inspirations of the waters. Sonar, toxins, morphing his body into crab claws, tentacles, shells that are used as drills, machine gun pearl clams, and even using the waves themselves to embody Neptune's full wrath. Dimitri outright turns anyone he wants into one of the brides of Dracula before bleeding them dry, weaponizing the endless allure of a vampire in one of the most novel ways imaginable.
Come on, baby.
QB is a bee lady whose eyes are up here, thank you very much, who stings you, lays an egg inside of you, dies, and then a new QB bursts out of your body cocoon to continue the fight. Each member of the Darkstalkers cast takes an element of horror and tries to make it as succinct and cool as possible for players to enjoy, letting them indulge in the fantasy of not just being a monster, but being the best form of that monster that they can possibly be.
Let's play.
However, there can be one aspect of Darkstalkers said to be missing from the whole package: a celebration of horror itself. Sure, we do have unnerving moves like QB's Unplanned Parenthood attack, but there's some inherent and incredibly lovable goofiness permeating all of Darkstalkers. From Morgan's funny reactions to getting hit or fried, to Sasquatch being the cutest little yeti and the best Canadian in fighting games, to Victor grabbing you with his butt. The tone of Darkstalkers is one looking to comedically balance ham and horror to create a high-octane fighting game. Parody mixed in with celebration for its cast. And that is fantastic. I really love it. But if you're truly celebrating monsters, you need to create your own terror too. Both in concept and in gameplay execution, players need to understand the meaning of fear. And fortunately, Vampire Savior is glad to give an answer. For through creating an incredibly original villain, Capcom is able to lead his followers to a new titan of terror. The Dark Messiah himself. Jedah Dohma is one of the three high nobles of the Makai, the supernatural realm from which demons spawn and connect to our own, inspired and designed by Shinigami, gods and overseers of death. Jedah is a master of manipulating souls, contracting them to his subjugation and absorbing them into his being to grow in power. However, Jedah's power was eclipsed by his fellow noble, Belial Ainsland, forcing Jedah to watch as Belial's influence spread chaos across the demon realm. Well, chaos based on Jedah's incredibly lofty standards, of course. Desiring absolute order above all else, the Dark Lord was tempted by his closest advisor, Ozam, to open the gates of Makai to devour countless souls therein. Confident in his abilities, Jedah ordered Ozam to open wide the figurative and literal gates of hell, unaware that his confidant had plotted to overload Jedah with energy and erase his very existence from an overabundance of souls. Ozam broke the gate seal entirely, fleeing as the distressed Lord of Death's own soul was overwhelmed.
You can actually pinpoint the second when his heart rips in half. And now!
And yet, Jedah would not die. In a mere 100 years, Jedah had completely reforged himself from soul annihilation, returning to his power-hungry subordinate not with malice, but with purpose.
I shall put your affairs in order.
Jedah effortlessly killed Ozam, using him as the center of his new existence, a realm between realms, the Majigan. There, he would form a being to embody all planes of reality, the fetus of God, a baby that would consist of all worthy souls through the Makai and human realms, a paradise of unification where all souls can become one. All realms will be subjugated in endless compliance, where the order of God is absolute when all are one within him. And it's in Jedah's Majigan that Darkstalkers and vampire hunters alike would converge to fight to stop the machinations of the vampire savior.
Enter the banquet of the abyss.
This is the monster to make other monsters cower. A being to whom death is just a bump in the road, forming dimensions, even creating life itself. And Jedah does not disappoint in practice. The Dark Messiah would never stoop to throwing out mere kicks and punches. Every one of Jedah's moves is informed by his corrosive blood, improbable regeneration, and insatiable, torturous thirst. He tears the tendons in his fingers to extend, clawing at anything in front of him, rips his arm out of its socket, puppeteering it with blood to skewer his foes, slashes through his own open wounds to create a curtain of blood to melt through his foes. Jedah's body in its entirety is a means to an end, to destroy the very conventions of the human form to make sure that you die.
No need for the trappings of flesh.
His wings do allow him to fly around and circle his prey, but Jedah further weaponizes them by tearing them out of his body, letting them regrow as he utilizes his wings as bloody buzzsaws or a reaper's scythe to mangle anyone in front of him. Heck, these stripes on his uniform are actually open wounds, blood dripping as the match goes on. God is bleeding before you, and he does not care. You will die to the incomprehensible, no matter how vulnerable he may make himself. Does he have a goofy move to complement all this horror? Sure, he does make you play the game where you can pump it as many times as you want, but you have to pump it at least once, and whoever reaches the limit loses with a command grab. And he always wins. But Jedah's body language is absolute throughout. Though Jedah is maiming and mangling himself to achieve victory, this is the natural course of action for him. He is always superior. You are always an insect to him. And the only moments that he lifts this holier-than-thou facade is when he's truly inflicting pain, knowing that you're helpless and afraid, ignoring his grand design for the bliss of his superiority. When he can make a monster scream, Jedah is truly alive.
Did you enjoy that?
And this depiction is not just exclusive to his visual identity. Jedah is fought as either the final or penultimate opponent in most routes of Vampire Savior, the de facto boss character for the title. And after getting over the shock of his choice of arena, and how his kid pops off at every combo with the only voice you could imagine the amalgamation of all beings having, Ripperoo, you're probably gonna try and suss out what this new boss is all about. And show you he shall.
Shall we dance?
Not only do Jedah's attacks reach a ridiculous distance as he tears apart his body, his dash naturally causes him to glide right at you, launching him into the air to mix you up with an aerial assault. Combine that with his Dio Sega pinwheels of death and natural unfamiliarity, and it's likely that you're going to wind up on the defensive. And that is where Jedah bears his true fangs. Of Jedah's 4 damaging special moves he always has access to, 3 of them are unblockable command grabs. Be it his Nero Fatica to swiftly retreat before reaping his opponent's soul, San Passare for a great deal of up-close damage, or Ira Spinta to swoop down from the heavens before slicing you to ribbons. If you're playing defensively against Jedah, he will break you. So, okay, don't guard. Easier said than done when Jedah's tossing out buzzsaw wings everywhere, lingering projectiles glad to put you into a lot of block stun. Prepared for his Ira Spinta after it's gotten you a few times? Oh, sure, it's reactable, but he can cancel it into the Ira Piano, turning his whole body into a spinning blade that you could have blocked, but didn't out of fear for the grab. Both of his supers? Yep, those are unblockable too. Provia di Servo summoning a torrent of blood that Jedah can tell to grab you whenever he feels like it and literally seal your fate and soul. And Finale Rosso, tracking you wherever you are along the ground to strangle you to death in the blood dimension. Oh, and say you finally corner him and put Jedah on the defensive for once.
Decapitation!
He cuts off his own head to spray you with a bloody mist and get you to back off. Oh, and his Dark Force lets him fly around infinitely to assault you with an endless barrage of mix-ups and moves far swifter than he could normally dish out, literally above you at all times. Jedah is a true terror, making you afraid of playing defensively, unnerving you, breaking the concept of what one could possibly expect out of a humanoid opponent and exploiting it for shock and gore. He is a character who functionally makes the player afraid of him, causes them to cower through putting them in block stun, and breaks through their every defensive effort with unblockables. He is a monster. But when you stand up to monsters, it's they who should run and hide. Beware, for I am fearless, and therefore powerful. Whenever Jedah extends his hitboxes for his long-reaching normals, he's often extending his hurtbox as well. If you're directly contesting Jedah, throwing out your own punches along with his, you're often going to be trading with him rather than Jedah getting off a pure win, preventing him from getting going with his other techniques.
Annoying!
Most of his best options have rather significant startup, So if you're charging in or have a quick option to snuff Jedah out, he'll often get overwhelmed. His guard cancel decap attack does have some amazing range, but it takes the Dark Messiah a second to regrow his head, making it rather easy to bait. And perhaps most amusingly, Jedah's holier-than-thou stature leaves him very vulnerable. Not only because he's tall enough that proper posture makes him get caught in air combos super easily, but his refusal to get on others' level causes a lot of his standing normals to whiff crouching opponents.
Incomprehensible!
Jedah may have the tools to make you cower before him, but if you don't respect the devil and keep punching him in the face, if you literally fight your fears and don't give him an inch to start with the terror, you will win. Because Jedah isn't the absolute order of vampire savior who all others must kneel to. He is.
My name is Raptor, and showbiz is my game. I struck my stuff, and so you know my name. I know my job. And it's to party hardy, dudes.
This shouldn't be.
Darkstalkers is an incredible success of a series in all aspects besides being alive. It's a beautiful celebration of monster-based horror and myth. It's a really enjoyable fighting game series whose third entry is so good it's still played to this day, and it's combined a legitimate passion for its subject matter with a humor and wit that lovingly parodies and sends up all of the classics it's toying with. But most importantly, the Darkstalkers universe evolves its concepts, furthers its characters and stories with its own ideas to not just celebrate monsters, but make its own. Jedah Dohma is the ultimate result of that. Once just part of the Mackay's backstory, he was fully fleshed out to not just be a unique and original villain, but to embody horror itself. Everything from the backstory that leads to his stage, to his polite yet twisted design, to his attitude, to his attacks, to the way that he plays is made to create something to unnerve players, to make them feel inferior to the vampire savior and fall into the darkness of oblivion he promised.
My salvation is the answer to all your prayers.
And in standing up to him, players get to face that fear, overcome it, and send him tumbling down the tier list where he belongs. I don't think that Jedah was designed to be a mid-tier. You really shouldn't try and make characters inherently better or worse than each other. But I do greatly respect creating both strengths and weaknesses from a character. You can't just design a monster and make them look cool and expect people to get scared. How do they think? How do they operate? How does their design inform how they move and attack? How does their character inform it? How do you beat them? What would they fear? Jedah answers and embodies all of these questions and makes for an unforgettable fighting game character who endures far past his series' expiration date. As the game itself says, the Savior will return again and again until the mission is done. And that enduring legacy, that insatiable, unstoppable desire, is how you design for terror.
Your role is finished. I understand your opinion. I just don't care about it.